Now everybody needs a good winter project to distract them from that annoying white stuff that falls from the sky. This is my winter project. I present to you guys my newest project car. This is the next big thing. It's my 91 Acura Nsx. Now I'll break the news to you guys right off the bat. This car is getting a K-Series, either K20 or K24. Now the reason for that is because three things. There's three factors that play a role in my decision to pull out the factory C30 and throw in a K-Series. Number one, the car is ridiculously slow. Now a factory C30 is a V6 3 liter, which technically does make more power than a stock K20 or K24, which is a 4-cylinder 2 liter or 2.4 liter, depending on which variant we're going to go with. But that brings me to my next point. The modability of a K-Series is far greater than a C-Series. A C-Series, I think there was one company that made a turbo kit, and I think there's one company that makes a supercharger kit. But then that brings me to my next point. This motor, even with exhaust, like the best exhaust you can get, sounds absolutely atrocious. Next point, this car is an automatic. I started looking up all of the parts to go ahead and manual swap it while keeping the factory C30 engine in it. I wanted to go with the factory 6-speed. They made a 5-speed, which is hard to find. They made a 6-speed, which is really hard to find. And if you can find them, it seems like they're anywhere from $8,000 to $10,000, maybe even more. So then I started thinking, what if we just pull out the motor, sell the transmission, pick up a K-Series, which I know a good used K-Series, a K24 is around $1,000. We can find a good used transmission that's gonna be around $1,000. And then from there, we have a much better starting point for modability. So boys, that is what we're doing. Pulling the factory motor, throwing it in the garbage. Well, not really, probably selling it because they're worth a ridiculous amount of money. Taking all the money from selling the good used motor and transmission and putting it into the swap. From there, we mod. All right guys, we got the car up in the air. This is my first time ever seeing the car on the lift. I've never once put it on the lift prior to this. So here's how it currently looks. Here's the motor, here's the automatic transmission. Looks like someone built a little cat back exhaust for it. This still has the factory cat up there, but all of that stuff needs to come out. Being that I know this is going to be a pretty intensive project, I think I'm gonna go ahead and remove the quarter panels, remove the bumper, remove the trunk, pretty much remove all of the body panels off the back of this thing. The last thing I wanna do is damage those body panels. Unfortunately, when I was removing the side skirt, I did break off two of these guys here. Now, thankfully, they can be fixed, but I should probably be a little bit more careful. I'm sure even parts like a side skirt are pretty hard to find and probably pretty expensive for this kind of car. Before the quarter panel unbolts, we need to pull off the rear bumper, the trunk, and that glass. The last piece to remove was the B pillar. There was two nuts on the back side. We had to pull down the headliner and some of the interior trim to get to those. But now it's just probably 10 bolts and the quarter panel will be off. The entire quarter panel unbolts. That is the coolest thing ever. I have never just unbolted a quarter panel. They're always spot welded on. And just like that, my friends, the whole back of the NSX is torn apart. One thing I am super thankful for on this car is how literally mint the interior panels are. This is all the paneling we had to remove to get the B-pillar trims off in order to unbolt the quarter panels. Every single piece is perfect condition. And if you take a peek on the inside of this car, I know it's old, it's a 1991, but it is in super nice condition. I don't know how much of this is going to stay OEM. Probably everything, maybe not the seats and maybe not the steering wheel, but that's going to save us a ton of money on this project, not having to replace a ton of interior panels. Well, we are pretty much ready to start unbolting and pulling out the drivetrain. Now, of course, I've never worked on an NSX before, so this is going to take me a while, but this is the stuff that really excites me, was working on new to me project cars. I've done a billion Evos, I've done a billion Subarus. I'm very familiar with like the newer Civics, Type Rs and whatnot, but pulling out a mid-engine engine is going to be super fun. Let's go ahead and start pulling off a bunch of stuff up top. We have the airbox and intake system, coolant reservoir, throttle cable, all the wiring, vacuum hoses, and then we can get this car up in the air, remove the exhaust, axles, shifter cable, drain all the fluids, and drop this son of a gun on the floor. Everything up top is removed, and now we can get the car up in the air, do the fluids, the axles, the exhaust, and drop the drivetrain on the ground. So everything underneath is now disconnected. All of the fluids are drained. All we have left is the driver's side and passenger side motor mounts. And this motor and transmission will be on the ground. Well, I thought I could snake the motor and transmission around the rear subframe. Turns out that is not the case. This thing is simply put just too big to drop out without removing the rear subframe too, which is precisely why this thing is getting a 4-cylinder. We did it. The motor and the transmission are on the ground. If I was to do this again, I would just go ahead and pull all of the suspension, knuckles, everything off first. It's kind of in the way. Sway bar kept getting hooked on the exhaust manifold. There's a couple little things I would do differently, but I guess that's kind of the point of working on cars. Try it once, figure out a better method, and do it better next time. That is a pretty crazy sight. Shop is an entire mess right now. Here's all the parts that we don't need. Obviously, we don't need the engine or transmission, any of the wiring for the engine or transmission. And here's my little pile of parts that I do need. Rear subframe and some little cross members. Well, guys, let me know what you think in the comment section below. I'm sure there's gonna be a lot of people that say, keep the C series. Why don't you put a J series in it, which is also a V6? There's a million different ways you can go about building a car. This is just what I decided. And I think it'll make sense to you guys at the end as to why I'm choosing a K over a J. It'll make sense. Stay tuned. Let me know what you think down in the comment section below, and I'll see you guys next time.